Good evening, Bremen. I got a message the other day that someone in the audience wanted to change our date for tonight because this is a holiday weekend, not a lot of people here. Well, we planned it that way, so. Well, at least they did. I'm glad that most of you are here. Some of you, I'm just kidding. There was about 18 of us. There was about 18 of us from Carrollton, Broughton, and Bremen. And I think there's a couple of interpreters in there, but flew to Peru. Got on a plane in Atlanta, and 6.5 hours later, we landed in Peru. And our team became part of this team. This is the Latin American Missions Peru evangelism team for 2025. There were about 80 people, including gringos and interpreters. That doesn't include the congregation that we worked with. The name of that congregation is Subtanyala, and that is not pronounced correctly. I can't do it. It's the last part of it is hard to say, but I can spell it, so that's good. When we get there, we get in our rooms, and the next day we are broken up into smaller teams. The team I was on was Ashley, Michaela, wherever, she's not here, and Jalen, and our interpreter, Pablo. And usually we have a couple of local people, meaning someone that lives there as part of that congregation, that they know, well, they know where we should not go. And some places they're not as safe as others, so they direct us from there. This is our this is us having a Bible study, our door knocking team. I think we were group team number 11, but and it was, you see me there in the blue boggin. It was not just because I'm bald. It's cold there. The temperature at night was about 50 degrees, and high 75. Each team has duties, and Ashley's duty was to be our record keeper. Addresses, names, how many doors we knocked, how many flyers we handed out, how many Bible studies, record keeper. And Jalen and Michaela, their job was to initially knock on the door. People, they see some old guy like me come up to the door, and they're less likely to open it. But if you have a young person, even kids with you, it's good to knock on the door, and people will open up a little more readily. Another job that Jalen and Michaela had was to take care of the children when we did have a Bible study. We're knocking doors during the day, so most times the only people that are there are the woman of the house and some kids. And so the mother will not have to worry about her children running all over and them wanting her attention. They take care of those kids. Teamwork, and I mention these duties because teamwork is critical. Now, could I have gotten down on the ground and colored with those kids? Sure. Could Ashley have led the Bible study? Sure. I know that because the 6 months prior, I worked with David and Ashley and said, study this. And this is what we used as our Bible study guide. This is the Does It Matter booklet. It's back there on the table. When interpreting, it takes about 2 hours to go through this. In just English, maybe an hour. I've done it in a little over that. That's quick. So most times when it got to an hour long, I would say, hey, we've been studying for an hour. Do you need to go do something? And sometimes they do. And so we'll make a schedule to come back the next day. It's important. Everybody on the team has a job, and sometimes those positions overlap. Michaela and Jalen were very important to our team. I was following them. I mean, they were just going from door to door and meeting people on the street, handing out flyers. What happens when we knock on a door is we tell them, we're here for a reason. Tell them who we are. I'm Scott. I'm from the Church of Christ right down there. We're having a meeting this week, and we're inviting you to that meeting. We also have classes for children. On my very first trip, about 10 years ago, went up, knocked on somebody's gate, and told them we had VBS. This was in Nicaragua, a very poor country. VBS stands for Vacation Bible School. And so when my translator looked at me and I said, Vacation Bible School, he said, they don't know what a vacation is. And so I changed that to, we have classes for children. They understood that. A lot of times getting the parents to come to the building, we use the kids, and we do that here. Bring kids to church, and then eventually their parents will follow. That's what happened to me. There was a preacher that was 2 streets over from where we lived. I was maybe 5, and he and his wife would stop by and pick us up, take us to church. Probably 8 months later, my dad was restored, and my mom obeyed the gospel. Obeyed the gospel. That was 50 years ago. So teamwork is vital. Let's look at Philippians 2 and verse 2. Philippians 2 and verse 2. Fulfill ye my joy, that ye be like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Romans 15:6. That you may be with one mind and one mouth glorify God. I know I'm going a little fast. Ephesians 4:3. Endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. We're supposed to be a team. Now, yeah, there can be little teams, and that's good. But what happens sometimes in a congregation, you get people that don't like each other. Somebody from over here doesn't like somebody from over there, and they start talking, and eventually if that's allowed to continue, that can become a division. There's a guy I've been to Peru 4 times. There's a guy he's been 4 times, same trips, and I don't like him. And some things happen on the first trip, and every year I watch him, and he hadn't changed, and I don't hang around him. I don't. But we've had Bible studies with people, and we are like-minded. We are there to evangelize. We're there to carry the message. We're there to save souls. I don't have to like him. I don't. But what I do have to do is work with him towards an end. Let's look at Ecclesiastes chapter 4, starting at verse 9. Ecclesiastes 4, starting at verse 9. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fail, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him. And a threefold cord is not quickly broken. We have to realize that there are people in the world that don't want us to evangelize. They don't want to hear the truth. And they'll do things to stop us. Lie. There's all kinds of lies about the church of Christ. It's a shame. So let's look at Luke 10. Luke chapter 10. Starting at verse 1. And after these days, the Lord appointed other 70 also, and sent them 2 by 2 before his face into every city and place, whither he himself would come. Jesus sent out 70 disciples. We're not told how many disciples were following Jesus at that time. He sent out 70 disciples, 2 by 2, partners. And it says whither he would come. I had to look that word up. That means where he would come. He was with them in these cities. Let's skip down to verse 10. But into whatsoever city ye enter, and they receive you not, go your ways out into the streets of the same, and say, even the very dust of your city, which cleaveth on us, would he wipe off against you. Notwithstanding, be ye sure of this, that the kingdom of God is come nigh unto you. That's very hard for us to do when somebody says, I don't want what you have. And I don't mean you just knock on the door and they say, go away, church people. No, you study with them for a couple of hours, and then they say, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that. And that very rarely happens, except it happened this year with our team. A lady, she lived next to a car wash, and the guy that owned the car wash was father of her two children. He went to the Pentecostal church that her brother preached at. And so we had 3 studies with her. First one went great, second one went great. And then somehow overnight, she realized she's going to have to change churches. If she accepts what we're teaching her, she's going to have to change churches. And then in her mind, I don't know if this is true or not, but in her mind, the father of some of those children was going to stop supporting her, and her brother was going to stop supporting her. And so she made that choice and told us to leave. So that was very, I was going to say traumatic, and I guess it was, but it's the first time that's happened to me. So we go out and we knock doors and we have these Bible studies, and sometimes you have a Bible study a couple of hours in different sessions, and that person says, this is what I need. This is what I've been looking for. I want to be baptized for the forgiveness of my sins. And we take them and baptize them. Some people are a little slower, and we don't get as much done as we could, and so we fill out a contact card. This is it's got their name, phone number, whatever. Some of these houses don't have address, so you put the house next to the car wash, the blue house with the broken down car or whatever in front of it, and you fill this out, and we give it to the congregation. We leave it with them, and this year we left. It was over 100. I think it was about 130, and the goal is for them to continue our work, and that's what happened this year. That lady right there, that big head right there, is a lady named Norma, and her husband is the guy on the left, or it's actually on that side, Reuben, and they are workers. I'm glad Chris led that song, Worker for the Lord. They are workers. They took the contacts we gave them, we left with them, and they've been working them. They've been having Bible studies. She posted something on Facebook since I made this, and let me read that to you. It says, visiting and evangelizing to Yes To campaign contacts. Day 1, Monday, we had 2 studies. Tuesday, we had 2 studies in the morning, and in the afternoon, we had 4 studies. Grace to God and to all the brothers who are supporting for the honor and glory of our Lord Jesus Christ. We're a team. This congregation is supposed to be a team part of a bigger team, the church. These teams can go all over the world, We didn't go beauty first. We went age first. It's from the oldest to the youngest. But Cam and Wes are going to come up here and tell you some more stuff. I believe Cam's going to have numbers for us, which the numbers this year were great. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Good evening. Well, as y'all know, I'm in law enforcement, so I'm used to talking to about 1 to 2 people at the most at a time. If I'm talking to this many people, something has gone horribly wrong. But we're going to get through this together. So the first slide, as you can tell, Scott said he couldn't exactly say the name but couldn't spell it. Well, I was the opposite. I couldn't spell it. I literally had to pull my shirt out of my closet and look at it and go letter by letter. But that is Septenjaya, Peru. Very, very, very small town. In fact, whenever I was at customs coming into Peru, they ask you a lot of questions. Where are you going? Why are you here? What are you doing? And the whole time I'm like, I don't know. Like, I could not say it. At that point, I didn't know how to say the name. I just kept saying, I'm coming here for mission work. Well, are you staying here? Eventually, I just said, yeah, I think so. And they said, okay, and they let me finally through my bag. So, but Septenjaya, that is where we were. Wonderful people, very, very small. It was a developing area, but extremely small. When I say in the middle of nowhere, desert, oh my goodness, that's not even, they would have to have half the population double before that happened. Great people, though. In the next slide, I'm going to try to figure out how to work this thing. There we go. So that last slide you guys just saw of Scott's, this fellow right here, his name is Luis. I was not one that necessarily did a main study with him, but I put him in here because he reminded me of one of the biggest reasons why we go here, or why we go on mission trips. The first house that this gentleman this guy, his name was James, he's from the Macklin Church of Christ congregation. This was the very, very first person he came in contact with that Sunday night. And he walked up to him, and in fact, the locals were kind of like, hey, we've got some other people we want to see. And he is a barber, Luis is, and James said, no, I want to talk to this guy. So he did. He walked up to him, and he said, hey, I'm just interested in wanting to study the Bible with you. And this guy, first words out of his mouth were, well, you from the Mormons? Because I'm tired of hearing from them. I want to hear somebody that preach me the gospel. And he literally says he has been praying for weeks and weeks and weeks for somebody to just come and teach him the Bible. Because so many other congregations came, and they just were trying to teach it from a creed or from a Book of Mormon or many, many different things. And he said, I don't want to hear any of that. And as we started going through this book right here with it, it was amazing. He almost could answer the questions before he even got to the answers. And it's because he had been studying himself. He just had nobody really truly there working. Now, the congregation is, like I said earlier, it's very, very small, so it's not to their fault at all. It's just they didn't have the manpower. But in my opinion, and I'm sure it'd be the same as you guys, if this was the only person that we saved that entire trip and all the money we spent, that'd have been well worth it. Especially bringing somebody that was that eager to learn the gospel to the Church of Christ. That would be me doing one of our studies. As you could tell, I was definitely not tired of another picture being taken. But the lady over here on my far left, she was a local as well. Her name was Marjorie, very young girl. She was great. She was my interpreter, but she wanted to study the Bible with this lady over here. Her name was Theodosia. Theodosia was actually one that Scott had handed off to us because, as you can imagine, we're all going knocking doors and doors and doors. Tons of them are overlapping. We're having to schedule Bible studies. People say I can only meet at 4 o'clock, and next thing you know, you've got 7 studies at 4 o'clock tomorrow. So that doesn't work. So a lot of times teams will exchange and we'll have to hand off different Bible studies. She was a little different, I have to be honest with you. Whenever we were studying with her at first, she was telling me about as she was praying, she was seeing trees that were growing in the middle of her living room, and they were talking to her, and she just had a lot of visions, I guess you could say, her words. And so we didn't really have a whole lot of hope for her, I'll be honest. We kept talking to her a little bit further and further, but another group ended up actually studying with her sister. And I talked to the locals, and they're kind of like, yeah, we studied with her before. This isn't really a great contact. So I don't want to say we wrote her off, but we just kind of put more time and effort into other people. Well, on the last night we were there, she actually showed up, and she says, I want to continue studying the gospel with you. And I said, really? And which of course, mind you, this is with an interpreter, and it is not smooth talking with an interpreter. I had a wonderful interpreter, Raphael. He was here last week or week before. He did great, but as you know, Moses, whenever God came to him and said, hey, I need you to go and to lead these people, and he says, well, Father, I have a speech impediment. Well, I didn't have a speech impediment, but I tell you what, I would say that that's probably as close as you can get to having one without having one, is trying to preach somebody the gospel through a translator. And anybody that's ever done that before, especially for me, it was my very first time ever doing Bible studies with people. So that was very interesting. But yeah, like I said, she didn't, to my knowledge, as of yet, has not obeyed the gospel, but, it just goes to show, my big takeaway from that was that even though we may have in our minds that, maybe this is not the person we need to put most of our time into or our efforts into, God may have other plans. You never know how he's going to work around and bring people. Like I said, another group just happened to meet her sister, and then all of a sudden it brought her to us, and we continued studying with her. So that was one big takeaway for me was, you don't ever have preconceived notions about people. Next slide here. So Joybert, which is a very young 15-year-old over here on the far right side, and that's his mother, Amba. I would probably say, was one of our more successful Bible studies. Unfortunately, as of yet, she has not obeyed the gospel. But her son, I actually did, and my translator went off and had a study with him as I was studying with Theodicea. But I put this family in here because so many of you were able to give us donations and everything else prior to us going there. Well, I wanted to share with you what the church was able to do with those donations for us. So as we're having a study with this lady, mind you, she does have a 15-year-old, but she also probably had at least 3 or 4 other kids. And at the time, we didn't know this, but while we were studying with her, we had teenagers that were supposed to keep the kids riled up, but if any of you have kids or grandkids, you know that that does not happen. If they want their mom, they're going to get their mom. And so they kept coming in, they kept telling mom, something. We didn't know what she was saying. And later on, we learned that what the little kid was saying was, Mommy, we want water. And the mother was saying, well, I'm sorry, I gave you all the money I had to get water. You know, I can't give you any right now. Because I'm not sure if you realize or not, but in Peru, it's not like the Central America where you can't drink the water because it's so disgusting, although, I mean, I would venture to say it probably was, because you go outside of their houses and you see like rainwater collectors, like plastic containers that are keeping their water. But whenever we found that out, it hit pretty hard with me and Lindsay in our group. So what we decided to do was the next day, we took our local shopping. And as you can tell, there's another man standing beside him that Lindsay was taking the picture, and as we were taking the picture, she's holding the camera up, and this guy's mean mugging her like, why are you taking a picture of me, gringo? But anyways, so, but that was us taking Jason shopping. We were able to buy what equivalency here would have been probably $400 or $500 in groceries easily. Ended up only really being about $200 in our currency. But we got her oil, we got rice, water, diapers. I mean, you name it pretty much. You know, we asked the local, we said, hey, look, whatever you think that this lady could need that y'all would use, go get it. And so that was a wonderful thing we were able to use a lot of that money for, because she literally didn't have water to give her kid. You know, I mean, the little 2-year-old running around in a diaper saying, Mommy, I'm thirsty. And the mom, I mean, as a parent, I can't imagine having to tell my kid, sorry, you know, I don't have any water to give you. You know, water is one of the main necessities that we have that we take for granted here in America. You know, and there's a lot of things we take for granted in America, you know, the houses, everything. And that's one thing I really wanted to thank all of you for, was all of you that donated, helped, supported, prayer, everything, that was one of the most eye-changing moments that you ever receive. And if you have not been on a mission trip before, I highly, highly encourage it, because you have no idea the things you will learn, see, the people you'll meet. I mean, I'm probably closer with some of these locals here than I am, unfortunately, some people in this building right here. You know, it's just, you just get so close and you just grow to love these people. I still talk to some of them through WhatsApp. You know, it's amazing. And so, yeah. Last but not least, I wanted to mention, there is on the far, well, I guess right for you guys as well, but her name is Marjorie. It's the lady I spoke about earlier. Our last day there, she came to me and she said, brother, I'm wanting to go to a school, and essentially, from my understanding from the locals, what it is it's not like the Memphis Bible School of Preaching, but it's very similar as far as for the women's version of it. I believe they said it was in Brazil, and she needed money. She wasn't asking specifically for me, you know, for the money. She was just saying, hey, if there's anything you can do potentially to help. What she ended up telling me was what it will cost is, it's for 2 years, and I believe it's a total of $2,500, so it kind of averaged-ish out to about $50, $40 a month. I got with Kerry, who leads the Latin American program, and he said, you know, bring it up to wherever you can, whoever you can, just to see if you guys do want to donate. It's definitely not asked for or required by any means, but it would be very much appreciated, because Reuben, the local preacher, I don't believe, how was Sandra related to her? Is that his niece?
That's Norman and Reuben's daughter.
Okay, that's Norman Reuben's daughter.
Sandra's mother are sisters.
Okay, so the reason I bring her up is because she was one of the females who actually had been to that. And if any of you have been on a mission trip before, you've probably met Sandra. She's an amazing person. She actually, from my understanding, she went to dental school and something else just so she could solely go on these mission trips to do dental work for these people. So wonderful person, but she went through the schooling to do that, and she's done that school as well. And Marjorie, it's very hard to say, is one to follow in those footsteps. It's a great program. If you guys do want to donate or whatever, just let me know. I have contact, or anybody else that has a contact to carry through Latin American Missions. I believe he's got a few $100s right now. It's not, she doesn't necessarily need it until March, but she was very adamant she did not want to miss this opportunity. It will be going to a bank account, so we don't have to worry about, it going straight to her and she spend it on other things. It would be going strict, it would be as in paid out, as in not dividends, but as in installments, to make sure she gets whatever she needs. So, yeah, again, I just want to thank everybody for sending us on this. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Again, if you've never been, I highly, highly recommend it. Like I said, I had never really studied the Bible. I grew up in the church, but never really did a Bible study with someone before. But I learned a lot. A lot of us times whenever we're talking to friends and family back home, we're not trying to show them why they're wrong, but in a sense we kind of are a lot of times whenever we study with them, instead of just letting the Bible talk. And that was one of the biggest things that we took away from there is it's not about what I believe, it's not about what you believe, it's not about what any of us believe. What it is what the red and black letters in that book say. And that's what we got to get back to. And that was one of the biggest things, because I'm sure, we all want to be right? And sometimes it can end up being for the wrong reasons, and we lose sight of the real reason we're here sitting across from the table or chairs from that other person. So, again, thank you guys very much, and I'll leave it with Cam.
Hello, everybody. So this is my first year being a team leader. I was on group 2. Oh, there it is. Okay. Let's give him time to get that up. Being a sound guy, you kind of think of all the things that a lot of people don't think of, like waiting on the, Anyway, okay, so I need this. All right. This was the area that we had to work with. This is Subtanhaya. So it is a newer district, it's developing. So a lot of what you see on this map right here isn't developed. It's just bare ground, or unfinished buildings. So here is the church building we were working out of, the Iglesia de Cristo. That's what they call it in Spanish. So it is literally a brick and mortar building. 2 stories. The second story was added more recently. And you can see in the top right, I always point back there. Okay, you can see in the top right, that is with all 80 of our people, plus the locals. It's a full house. So it was warm, very warm in there. And then that's where we would do everything. Our devos, our meetings with Carrie. This is one where Carrie is addressing the Americans. So if someone is speaking, you usually have a translator if you're speaking to the locals as well. At night, when we'd split up into 2 groups. So we'd have the Americans outside, as you can see in the bottom picture, and then the locals will be inside. So we'll do our own devo. You don't have to worry about a translator, and they can do theirs. And this works like a summer series for us, but all in 1 week. So you have a different speaker every night for the locals. And then we did the same as well, just within our group. So this was my team, group 2. So you can see myself. My grandmother is the one in the tie-dye shirt. Most of you know her, Lynn Martin. Araceli, Austin is on the end, Vina, and Ismail. He was one of our locals. His mother was our other local. She did not happen to be in this picture. So we started, we all mapped out a group on this map here. So I think there we go. So I was about right here. I was up in this area. And I talked with the other groups to decide, hey, I'll take this, you take this. So we tried not to overlap too much. So that's where we are here, just knocking on doors. You can see Ismail's mom in this picture right there. Chad, this thing is nice, by the way. I like that. So I put a picture of one of our studies on there. I went and robbed Vina's Facebook. This lady, we stopped and talked to her, and she was interested, but she had a little kid with her. She let us study. That's why you can't see Austin in that picture. He's playing with the kid. He's a very, very cute kid. But we got pretty far with her, and we had hoped to study with her husband, but he had to work, and he wasn't able to be with us. We continue. Here's more of our study. This another study with her, I believe, it's the same day. But you can see her kid in that picture. And we did not get very far with her. Our goal was to build foundation. That was my goal for our group, is to build a foundation so that the people, the locals, the congregation there can continue that work. So we moved a little slower, and I was okay with that because I wanted to build a relationship with these people first. Before we'd talk to them, and I tried to make sure to ask questions like, "Oh, I love your flowers," or "I love your house," and I like architecture and stuff, so that was very interesting to me, the different architecture you see there. But I always tried to compliment something and let them feel good about something about themselves, and that would help us build that relationship and get to know these people more. Let's see. All right, here I put all of our studies here together. So in the left picture, we can see a study. I cannot remember names very well for these people, but we knocked on the door. This lady's dog came out barking and scared the life out of all of us, I think. So I tried to always be in between the dog and the rest of my group, because most of my group was ladies and I didn't want any of them to get hurt. So she got control of her dog, and we asked her if we could study with her, and she was very receptive. She did not have a door on the outside of her house, which was a little interesting. It was just a curtain. And we went back later at the time we had set, and she wasn't home. She went to the grocery store. So, but her niece was there and we got to talking to her, and we asked if she wanted to study, and she agreed, and we started studying right there on the street, right at the front door. And she had something to do, so we actually planned another time to come back when her aunt was there. I think it was later in the day. And we got to study with both of them at the same time, and we got the aunt called up to where she was, which was good. And she's actually from Spain, which was interesting. So I believe she lives in Spain. I wanted to say she had studied in Spain. I believe that she lives in Spain. Oh, go back. And then the lady in the center, we just happened to see her out, and we knocked. No, I have to remember this. This has been a little bit. We knocked on her door. She came out, and she was interested in studying. So we started to study a little bit in the doorway, which that happened a lot, actually. You can see in the right picture as well. That girl we studied with is on the road. I'm standing on the sidewalk there. And so this was, I believe, the second study we had with the lady in the middle. And she was very receptive. She had a little kid, but her mom, you can kind of see her in the back, was able to take care of the kid for us while we studied. And I had a wonderful team. Like I said, this was my first time being a group leader. So I told them ahead of time, I said, if you have any suggestions, let me know. Anything I can do better, please tell me. So that's what they did, and it helped a lot. I don't think I would be able to do it without them. And then finally, the girl on the right, we had met them actually walking. Her and her boyfriend, who she lived with, were walking to or from the store back home, and we got to talking to them, and they were interested. And we started studying with her. I believe this was our first study with her. And we were studying with her, and we got a pretty far away. We used the same book they do. and we started talking about her church history, as you should. And she came from a Pentecostal church. This church has a female pastor, and her father is basically the right-hand guy. But she had not attended for some time, for about, I believe, 9 months, because they did not like the fact that she was living with her boyfriend, which, that should she? Probably not. So we didn't address that right there. Kerry always tells us, he says, defer, not debate. So we didn't try to hit the same nail on the head that her previous church that ran her away. So we addressed that later in a more gentle way to kind of show her that, hey, this isn't a very good idea. But we also found out that she believed she had a calling to be a female pastor. So this was my first time ever dealing with something like that, and I did not know what I was doing. So I asked my grandmother, who was there with me, because coming from a man, it will be harder to show someone, hey, this is your role. This is my role. It would cause more problems if I had done it. So I asked my grandmother to address that, and she did it very well. And she did it very gently, as a grandmother would. She ended up giving her a hug, and I think telling her to call her grandmommy as well, because my grandmother's one of the sweetest people on the planet. So that was our studies, and I tried to organize this a little bit more to show some scenes as well, because, like I said, I like the architecture and stuff. So this was our hotel. It was very nice, very big, and had, I believe, 2 or 3 courtyards, which was surprising. I was not expecting it. I cannot pronounce that name either, but what he said. But our studies went well, and I believe it was a successful trip. So I want to show y'all what this place looks like. We get used to seeing here in the States, and we forget sometimes that the world isn't the same way as we have it here. We have it very nice here. That's one thing these trips have taught me. Pews can get comfortable, my truck can get comfortable, my bed can get comfortable, and it's not that way. Not everywhere. It's just about only here, and for a lot of things. So this was the street. Most of these buildings look unfinished, but they are actually finished. I heard there's a weird loophole that people go through, so you always see the rebar and everything sticking through the top of the building. This is one of those houses I mentioned that was very nice on the outside. You could definitely see who had more money and who didn't. It was very clear. Everything was bare except for the park, which you have gray and brown everywhere, and then you have the greenest part, I think, of the whole country. Was these little bitty parks. It would fit in this room. And you'd see kids playing. They had swing sets and everything. And the flowers were beautiful. In the right picture, you can see the Andes. That's one good part about these trips is you get to see things you don't get to see here. And they're far off in the distance, but I always thought that was a very good picture. Y'all can see that better than I can. I got the lines. But the Andes where we were looked like clouds in the distance, which was really cool. Here's some of the food. I always talk about the food, and I got Bray's parents are here with us, and her grandparents. I told them about the food probably about 14 times. So you had a lot of rice, potatoes, and some meat. That was our meal for each meal, minus breakfast. We had breakfast at the hotel, and this was our last. So every day we go out and study from Sunday until Thursday. And the last day, Carrie always tries to plan something, fun. We can just take a breath. Before we go home, we can have a day to relax. So we went to Huacachina. So this is a big desert area. And you have this little oasis down the bottom with a little lake and everything. And we got on these buggies you can see in the middle, and it felt like we were going about 90 miles an hour. It was loud, but it was so much fun. I had the guy next to me screaming. I think it was Raphael. Don't tell him I said that, but he was screaming like a girl. And then on the right one, you can see we were up on top of one of the taller dunes, and you can see for miles. It's beautiful. It really shows God's creation, how beautiful it can be, even in somewhere that's desolate. There's hardly any greenery unless it is planted or maintained by man. And this desert was huge. All right, so Saturday, I believe, we had time. We didn't get on the plane until about 11 o'clock at night. It was a red-eye flight for us. So we decided to spend some time in Lima, the capital city. And so we got to see a lot of things. There happened to be a parade that day. You can see the guy on the right. And we went shopping and had some fun. We enjoyed it. The middle is a church, I believe. I forget what kind. Okay. So here's the numbers. Doors knocked was 1,665. That is a lot of doors. If that's by any standard, that's a lot of doors. 2,000 contacts, over 2,000 contacts. That is knocking doors. That is meeting people in the street or VBS. We had a wonderful turnout for VBS. I believe VBS was about 1,200 kids, if I remember correctly from me looking at that earlier. Hot contacts, this is people who we fill out a card for. We have it set up so that the church can go back. This is what the church is working on, is those 175 contact cards. So they don't have addresses and everything, so we have to describe it. But these are the people who we believe, like we write it down, we ask them if we can have the church come back and visit, and we put their information on a card. And the church will go back and visit these people, and they will be working for a long time after we have left. Almost 200 studies that can range from 5 minutes to 4 hours. We had our longest study was about 3, and it was a very profitable study. That lady in particular was one that she said, we knocked on her door and said, "Hey, we're from the Church of Christ. We're coming around." She's like, "Oh, I'm so happy to meet fellow Christians. I am so happy. Come in. Let's study. Let's study the Word together and learn together." Now, was she a member of the Church of Christ? No. But it was very refreshing to see someone who was so, whether she was in the faith or not, she was so excited to study. And we did end up getting into the book far enough where she could see, hey, this something needs to change. And I told her, I said, this is not me telling you anything. This is not my opinion. This is what the Word of God says. I'm not here to tell you whether you're right or wrong. I'm going to let the Word of God do that. I'm going to let you read it for yourself. We always let them read it for themselves, because if it's my opinion, it doesn't get anyone anywhere. So then we had 14 baptisms, including, what was his name? Luis. Including Luis. I got to meet Luis. He's a very nice man, and his family. So this is the part where I get into my invitation. So I tend to be a very conversational speaker. So, okay. So doing all this, to sum all of this up, this can be scary. Going to another country, or even if it's next door, it can be terrifying to go up to someone, even if it's a complete stranger or someone that you've known for years. I didn't do that. Okay. Even if it's someone you've known for years, it's hard to walk up to them and say, "Hey, let's talk about the Bible." Because they'll see it as, I'm going to have to change my whole life. I'm going to have to change everything I've ever done to fit the Bible. And it's true. If you study with them and they can see that, hey, something's up. So it's scary, but it's a necessary thing. For example, I get up. I've spoke very little here since I've been here, and I've done things on mission trips and stuff. It's terrifying, but it's something I need to do, and it's something I need to do for myself, and because I feel like I can help. And I'm doing this for myself, talking to myself too in any of this. So let's look at an example of someone in the Bible who was, I'm sure, kind of scared to do something, but he did it anyway. And let's see. Okay. It's Caleb. Right, so we always hear about Joshua and Caleb, right? The two faithful spies. We always focus on Joshua because we hear about him more. Caleb doesn't appear quite as much as Joshua does. So in Numbers 13, starting in verse 30, it says, "And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, 'Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it.' Then the men that went up with him said, 'We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we.' And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, 'The land through which we go we have gone to search it. It is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and the people that we saw there are men of great stature.'" They were giants. And there we saw giants, sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Caleb knew there were giants. He knew that there were people who could one-on-one or even an army could take Israel out if they didn't have God on their side. But he never forgot, like the other spies did, he never forgot that they have God on their side. We don't have the same giants today, but could our giants be something else? They could be something else, something that bothers us. I know I have plenty of giants myself. I'm not perfect. It can be either teaching, speaking. It could be, sometimes, there's temptations. And those can be our giants that we can see and we have to face. So due to that bad report, as we all know, that the Israelites spent 40 years in the wilderness. So in Joshua 14, we can read about Caleb never forgot the promise that was given to him to have a section of land. And I will, it's in here. I have to read it. Joshua 14, starting in verse 6. "Then the children of Judah came unto Joshua in Gilgal. And Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kizite said unto him, Thou knowest the thing that the Lord said unto Moses the man of God concerning me, and thee in Kadesh Barnea. 40 years old I was when Moses the servant of the Lord sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land. And I brought him word again, as it was in my heart. Nevertheless, the brethren that went up with me made the heart of the people melt. But I wholly followed the Lord my God. And Moses sware on that day, saying, Surely the land whereon thy feet have trodden shall be thine inheritance, and thy children's forever, because thou hast wholly followed the Lord my God. And now behold, the Lord hath kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years, even since the Lord spake this word unto Moses, while the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now I am this day 85 years old, about 85 years old, as we would say it. As yet I am strong this day, as when I went, as yet I am strong this day, as I was that Moses sent me. As my strength was then, even so my strength is now, for war, both to go out and to come in. Therefore give me this mountain whereof the Lord spake in that day, for thou heardest in that day Anakims were there, and that the cities were great and fenced. If so the Lord be with me, then I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said. And Joshua blessed him, and gave unto Caleb the son of Jephunneh Hebron for his inheritance. Hebron became his inheritance. He was, talking about evangelism, if that is our giant, the thing that makes us nervous, whether it's at home or overseas, it doesn't matter if I am 19 years old. It doesn't matter if I am 19 or 119. That's my duty. That's my God. That's my job that God has given me. And not just me specifically, obviously. For everyone, Jesus says, go and make disciples of all nations. And that's what we must do. But we have to remember that all nations includes here. It includes our neighbors, our friends, people we have known for years, family. But it also includes, as we've shown today, people overseas who I've never heard the name of Jesus. There was a group of teenagers last year in Peru that had never heard, they didn't know who Jesus was at all. And it's sad. So I'll go to this. If we set our minds to it, if we say, let's work together as a family, we are children of God together, we are family, we could cover that whole map. If we put little crosses where we had Bible studies, that whole map could be full. It's a daunting goal, I know, but it's possible. That map we showed at the beginning, I was asked to do a Devo, and I said the same exact thing. I said, if we work together, we can cover this map. And I believe it. And we did. We covered that entire map. Everywhere someone lived, we covered it. And I'm not trying to bring any glory to myself. I want to bring glory to God. But we can cover this map. We can go next door. We have a business here. We can go. We have houses. We do door knockings every thing, and it works. I've heard people say that door knocking doesn't work in the States, and it does. You gotta have the right approach. Build a relationship with these people, and you will get in the door. Like we do in Peru and Central America. Let's go to work. Let's go to work for the Lord. Thank you.